Hi, I'm Hillary Wynn, Custom Content Manager for Meister Media Worldwide, the publisher of Crop Life magazine. I'd like to welcome Tony Dano, Agronomy Technical Services Manager at ICL. Tony is going to answer some questions about polysulphate and fall fertilization. But first, a little about Tony. With more than 30 years of experience in the agriculture industry, he has held roles such as Territory Manager, Primary Nutrients, Director of Sales, Liquid Specialty Products, and VP of Sales. Tony has deep passion and extensive experience in row crop systems and fertility programs in the Eastern Corn Belt. Tony, welcome.
Pleasure to be here.
Tony, what is polysulphate and what makes it different from other sulfur sources like ammonium sulfate or elemental sulfur?
Yeah, that's a great question, Hillary. And I'll kind of break it down with polysulphate versus ammonium sulfate versus elemental and just kind of summarize the difference between the three different products. Polysulphate is a very unique product. It's a 4-in-1 natural fertilizer containing 4 essential plant nutrients. It contains sulfur, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Ammonium sulfate, on the other hand, primarily provides nitrogen and like a sulfate sulfur. It has an analysis of a 210024S. Elemental sulfur is an uncombined form of sulfur that appears to be in a yellow solid crystal state. The difference between like an AMS and a polysulphate, for instance, is polysulphate has a really nice gradual release curve with the sulfur content within that product, whereas AMS has a more rapid release curve when utilized in the soil versus like a polysulphate. So like the release curve for a polysulphate runs about 50 days or lasts about 50 days versus like an AMS, which could last up to 10 days or less, depending upon some environmental conditions within the soil content. Then you look at elemental sulfur. It's kind of the polar opposite of a polysulphate and an AMS. That oxidation process for elemental sulfur can take several weeks or months, depending upon, again, the overall conditions within the soil profile to break down. So then that way it's more plant available when it needs it. So in essence, if you compare polysulphate, which is a multi-nutrient fertilizer with a slow release profile, versus an AMS, which is just a nitrogen sulfur product that has a much quicker release curve versus even like an elemental sulfur that has it takes so long for that product to break down in the soil profile to make that sulfur content more readily available. So, if you compare all three, depending upon what that crop needs and the timing, polysulphate is probably your most efficient nutrient available, and then also provides those 3 other elements that you don't get from those other compounds.
Why are more farmers starting to apply nutrients like polysulphate in the fall?
That's a really good question. As farms begin to grow and growers get bigger operations, applying nutrients like a polysulphate in the fall is becoming more and more prevalent for them because there's a lot of benefits associated with doing that for them. Not only the workload reduction that they get with that, but again, polysulphate being that 4-in-1 natural fertilizer, there's that prolonged nutrient release for the grower. It also reduces the risk of any nutrient loss through leaching, which is a huge benefit, not only for the crop, but for the environment as well. If you look at the environmental benefits with the slower release versus like an AMS, which has that quicker release, it has a lower carbon footprint, making it more environmentally friendly versus like an AMS and things like that. And then you got the logistical advantages. We all know how spring gets. It's hectic. Everybody's trying to get things done in a very timely manner. But then you throw in the unknown of what Mother Nature's going to do, whether she's going to rain, she's going to turn cold, whatever that happens there. it helps the farmer kind of balance that workload and spread that workload out from just the hecticness of spring versus fall. And then the other benefit to the grower as well is, those drier soils that we typically see in the fall time frame. There's a huge reduction in the potential of compaction in things, and the more you compact that soils, the harder it is for our seeds to get up out of the ground in the springtime. So it just kind of eases things for the grower from an overall workload perspective.
You mentioned leaching, but how does fall applied polysulfate support better nitrogen use efficiency and crop performance the following season?
Yeah, so great question. Fall applied polysulfate captures residual nitrogen. So there's always nitrogen left over after every season. Fall applied polysulfate will capture that residual nitrogen. And then again, through the gradual release of the nutrients and things, it helps support spring crop needs. During the winter months, it kind of gobbles up that nitrogen because for nitrogen to be more efficient, you need to have that combination of sulfur in the soil profile as well. And, when you come into your spring crops, having that gradual release and availability, make it an ideal choice for improving overall soil fertility while reducing, a grower's spring workload for them.
Are there any real world results showing how fall applied polysulfate performs in corn?
Yes, we have a few studies. I'll mention them. We had a trial conducted at the University of Minnesota that demonstrated that fall applied polysulfate resulted in a significant improvement in sulfur uptake and overall corn yield in the subsequent season. Again, that prolonged release of the nutrients coming from polysulfate, we get more of that stays in the soil profile and can be utilized for next year's crop as well. Then we had another trial out of the University of Mississippi that just showed that polysulfate increased corn yields by up to 27% when compared to a control without sulfur. So we continue to expand our research for fall applied polysulfate at universities and with contract researchers that we work with. So I hope to share more of those benefits in those trials later on as we accumulate that data from this year.
Is there anything else our audience should know?
I encourage the audience to really take a look at polysulfate. It's a very, very unique fertilizer. With that 4-in-1, it will help farmers be more efficient in terms of field passes because you're getting the benefits of calcium, you're getting the benefits of magnesium, as well the additional units of potash or potassium and the sulfur content as well. And, the research that we're seeing, it's just hugely beneficial from an environmental standpoint and also a nutrient and efficiency standpoint for the grower. So I think I would encourage every grower out there to take a look at figuring out how to incorporate this type of product into their cropping systems.
Where can more information about polysulfate be found?
Yeah, you can find that at our website, icl-growingsolutions.com. We have an extensive grouping of products and product portfolios, and as well as our research data that can be found on our website as well.
Tony, thanks again for taking the time to talk with me today.
Hillary, thank you very much, and I appreciate the opportunity.